Critical Hit is a drunken, foul-mouthed podcast for adults. Content warnings can be found in the episode description. Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of the Critical Hit podcast, where we drink beer and talk about everything. I'm Red King. With me is Chrono Warden and Crimson. Tonight, we are trying Country Pumpkin by Ithaca Beer Co. Try that again.
Ithaca Beer.
And we're talking about spooky movies because it's October and it is spooky season. Are you ready?
Yeah. Ready.
We are Critical Hit. This is Country Pumpkin. Cheers, bro. Let's go.
Cheers. Tink, tink. Let's get it.
Oh, boy.
Nope, that's fucking awful.
Oh, what?
Hold up, though.
No.
Wait.
No, it broke my whole fucking drink.
It's like I haven't had a single
No, because legitimately, that has been my thing for years.
Nope.
I have tried
Got you.
every pumpkin beer. I mean, every year it's like they come out with something that's pumpkin flavored and it tastes like shit. Here we go. This is Country Pumpkin by Ithaca Beer. Let's go over the stats. 5.9 ABV. I have not been able to find an IBU on this one.
It's not really bitter, though.
It's not bitter at all. It's got to be like...
My thing about this one isn't the pumpkin flavor.
It is the hops.
Yes.
Okay, so this is Magnum hopped with flavors of pumpkin puree, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, allspice.
all shining through perfectly.
I can't even fucking believe
It's
it.
a slice of fucking pumpkin pie in a can.
Yeah.
With
But
hops.
they ruined it with fucking hops.
You gotta hop it, bro. You gotta hop it. So
We'll get you used to these hops. Yeah.
No, they could have put this in a fucking cider, and I probably would like it.
I'm not gonna give you a cider though. Not on this fucking show.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
We're gonna
so
break you
We're
in.
not men of culture when it comes to beer.
we're gonna talk about Ithaca Beer Co. for real quick. This company was founded in '98 by Dan Mitchell. Oh my gosh.
Dan Donovan Mitchell.
So, besides you, who's a Southern boy, or besides Chrono, who's a Southern boy, we are upstate degenerates from New fucking York, and
Everybody seems to forget I was born in upstate New York.
get the fuck out.
First 2 years of my life.
That's not enough.
Well, you got to remember, I've been back up here for 8 now.
Word.
I don't know. Is that valid? I don't know if that's valid.
Oh no, he could put on some.
I'm 30.
Okay.
No, fair enough. Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
All right.
So
Okay.
a third of my life is up here, 2/3 are in the South. So I've seen it all.
I haven't.
So, Ithaca Beer Co. actually has a whole ass street in Ithaca,
Yeah.
and
That's impressive.
so their Flower Power IPA, which I've tried before, really good.
No, one time when I was doing some work up there for a certain company that I can't mention.
Their Flower Power, that sounded so fucking cryptic. It was recognized as one of the top 25 most important American craft beers ever brewed by Food and Wine magazine.
No, they have good stuff. I have drunk stuff of theirs I like. It was just not the beer because I don't like beer.
Oh, it's fantastic. So, as a little bit of background, pumpkin beer has always been a zero for me. Always, every fucking time I've ever tried it. Like, I think the worst was like Sarnak.
Oh, Sarnak anything really is not.
Yeah,
that
Sarnak is
bad.
crap.
Hey, I like some of their stuff.
I mean,
Granted, I like their sodas more than their alcohol.
Word.
Like the Shirley Temples
oh
and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I
okay.
was completely ready to suffer. I was completely ready to just be unhappy. But this is great.
He is officially broken into the pumpkin space.
I hope the next
in a
one just
positive
like
way.
tastes like dog shit in your mouth.
It's not too late. We could do it.
Listen, we're not trying for that.
So since we've really broken into to spooky season, the month of October, we're going to talk about horror, the movies, the genre of horror.
It's so horrible.
Right? So I've
Nosferatu your ass out the door.
Listen, I don't want to.
I don't know if that worked. That didn't check with me.
Nosferatu. I don't know. I'm trying to.
I want to
I-
deal with
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Now,
like,
how's that?
That's decent.
Fucking hijacked. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about the genre, right? I've decided, because I feel like I can do it, we're gonna go all the way back to the birth of horror.
Okay, I want to see your notes on this versus mine.
Got you. Okay, here's my notes.
Dawn of the Dead. I don't know.
What?
No.
No,
I
considering
know.
Night of the Living Dead is the first one in that series in 1968.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So just to give you a quick rundown on that, because it's actually some of my notes. Dawn of the Dead came out in 1975.
Yep.
A full 7 years, sorry. 7 years after Night of the Living Dead.
Oh.
Then Day of the Dead is 1985. The Night of the Living Dead remake is 1990.
That was the first of the Dead
Yeah.
movies that I've ever watched.
Same,
The
actually.
1990 or the 1968?
The
90.
the 90s
Because
remake.
the 68 is the first one
It
I
had
saw.
Ving Rhames in it.
Yes.
I fucking love Ving
I-
Rhames.
Think he's in both of them.
Get the fuck out.
Maybe not, because it's like the guys who did all the stuff in the 1968 one.
Oh, that'd be ridiculous. Oh my gosh. So here's my notes on the origins of horror, right? In the early thousands, it was all real stories because life was fucking scary and actually nightmarish, right? That's my notes.
Okay. I thought you were going into the history of horror films.
No, I like horror as a genre. There's the spoken, the written,
Books,
the
yeah.
stories, the legends. It was all based off of like Dracula. All because there's just some fucking Turkish asshole who was psychotic.
Well, he wasn't Turkish, he was Romanian.
Chill. How's that? I knew what I was talking about. Damn it.
Yeah.
Right. It's not Ataturk the Impaler, it's Vlad the Impaler. Well, so
I got learned.
Mustafa Kemal, the guy who actually founded Turkey as a country, was called Ataturk, Father Turk.
Okay, he knows history.
I just know that historically shit was horrible, and then
Yes.
they just wrote things that were actually happening.
So I actually watched the oldest horror movie. It exists on YouTube.
Okay.
Really?
1896. Georges Méliès. The House of the Devil, or La Manure du Diable.
Good.
I probably fucked that up. Anybody that speaks French, I apologize. 3 minutes and 19 seconds.
What?
It exists. On film still. I watched it on YouTube.
Yo, could you imagine how sick that shit was?
So here's the thing. It's actually surprisingly well made. Of course, by today's standards, it looks campy and everything. But it's literally, like, it started with, like, it's just a bat. It's a fake bat on strings, obviously, because this is 1896 special effects. But it's flapping around. It turns into a dude. He summons his Igor, because
Right.
I don't know what else you call the short, hobbled guy that's helping you do your crap. And then, like, he makes a cauldron appear, and a woman rises up out of it. And then, straight up, like, he sends his Igor away. He puts the pretty woman in a side room. And then a couple of guys, like, come in. They have, like, swords and stuff. They're looking around the castle. And, like, literally, he starts messing with them. And it ends up getting kind of weird. Like, so you know the, like, horror scene of, like, it's, like, 4 or 5 women are just like in white walking at someone.
Yes.
This scene is in this movie.
Holy shit!
Because like the pretty woman turns into like 5 old crones that are like all in white, and they just start walking at the guys. And it's actually like really good. It was really interesting to watch.
That sounds kind of
Yeah,
terrifying.
that's big as fuck.
I'm
Like,
imagining
no,
that.
imagine seeing this for the first time.
Okay. Just to give you an idea, 194 films are on YouTube for this guy.
Okay.
And like he from 1896 all the way up until like the early 19 teens, I think even maybe the 1920s, he's doing stuff.
Wow.
He had 6 Faustian style like short horror films. But he did The Cave of Demons, which a woman finds a cave filled with ghosts and skeletons of the people who died in the cave.
Okay.
There's A Terrible Night, where a man is trying to get a good night's sleep and ends up wrestling a giant spider in his dreams. Yeah, that one's a little like horror comedy. And then there's another one called The Bewitched Inn, which was 1897. And there's a hotel guest being pranked by an unseen presence. But then following that, 1897, an American named George Albert Smith, who went from photographer to director,
Right.
he actually came out with the X-Ray Fiend. Yes.
That
And
sounds
In the
1897, 2 years after X-ray was invented.
Wow.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, so they were really going off of the stuff of the time. You know, brand new technology.
Right.
Like cutting, like bleeding edge technology. And you're like, how? That shit's pretty scary.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
It's kind of
so a lot of the horror themes that I'm talking about here are spirits and things like that.
Right.
But Méliès didn't just do those. So the X-Ray Fiend is kind of cool because it's like it's 2 skeletons are going through like the actions of courting one another.
Right.
And if you think about that at the time, unless you were like a war vet or war surgeon or a doctor, you didn't see a lot of skeletons or bones or anything.
Yeah.
So it's just like what to us is a very, like when we court people, it's 2 skeletons doing that.
Right.
Then there was another one. He actually, like the paranormal investigation subgenre, he kind of made the first one of those.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's nothing new under the sun.
there really is.
Like when Paranormal Activity first came out, and it was like the first movie to me was actually pretty good.
Yeah, the first Paranormal
And,
Activity was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But that one
It's a
was
ripoff.
called
It's a ripoff of
1898, Photographing a Ghost. And literally, yeah, it sounds stupid.
was he
but
in a sheet?
I didn't actually get to watch
Yeah,
that one.
okay.
But like I clicked on a YouTube video that was like the history of horror. 1898 was a bad year because a lot of the films from that year that aren't like Méliès are just gone.
Right.
Like they don't exist. Because I actually have a Japanese company on here that did a couple. And there's no surviving footage from those because of like a 1923 earthquake that just caused this massive fire.
Right.
But like photographing a ghost is kind of interesting because it's literally like they're trying to take a picture of the ghost and like they fail every single time, and it's like throwing chairs at them and stuff like out of my house.
This is amazing.
But then yes, so 1898 in Japan, Konishi Hanten, 2 films by Ejiro Hata, and this is the company that became Konica. There's Shinen no Sosei, which is Resurrection of a Corpse, where a dead guy comes back to life after being dropped by his effectively pallbearers.
Right.
They just drop him.
That's a zombie movie. That's it.
Kind of.
So
Yeah, that's like the forerunner. What year was this?
1898. It's not really because he doesn't come back to like eat corpses or something. He just comes back to life.
Right.
okay.
Like he didn't get his last rites basically, so he just kind of like comes back to life. But there's no like footage of this thing left because like I said, earthquake.
That is fucking insane.
The other one is Bake Jizo the Spook. There's no records of any kind on this one. Like it's barely like it's
Yeah, it's probably because it's actually fucking haunted.
Probably.
well, so the theory is that it's about the Jizo statues that are all over Japan because Jizo is like the deity that watches over children who died before their parents, aborted fetuses, and just like children who die in the womb, kids that die young.
Right.
He's kind of like the caretaker of that. And the thought is it's about a haunted one of those statues. But like the writer played one of the guys in one of those films, and then it was just like a couple extras from the company. But like, so this isn't. I think this is 1903, but Méliès, still kicking around, actually did The Astronomer's Dream. And it's kind of funny, right? Like, I watched this one, and it was really good. It's surprisingly, the effects hold up really well. It's much less campy than House of the Devil.
Right.
But, like, he used his moon prop from this one in, like, 3 or 4 other films.
Okay.
And it's funny, right? Because you know how Merlin looks in Sword in the Stone, right? Sword in the Stone.
Yes.
It's this astronomer dressed like that. Like, he's got the wizard hat and everything. He's studying the star. And, like, he draws the moon on a chalkboard over the earth, and then it, like, animates.
Right.
And, like, he's being harassed by people. And so it's kind of like he is like the grandfather of the genre that would spawn stuff like Alien or Predator, the space exploration, because he was pushing the bounds of horror beyond the religious connotations of this period.
So a lot of things when it comes to horror wasn't actually like, we look at it as, oh man, it started in, like, we'll say the 80s, 90s, whatever, like where...
Well, probably the 60s.
Yeah.
A lot of us probably think of Night of the Living Dead, the original one.
And
But
if you think about something like Alien, that's
1970s.
That's a newer premise.
1970s, yeah.
You know, so if you think about something like that, like, we think that a lot of these ideas have been brand new, and, like, you know, in our parents' lifetimes and their parents' lifetimes, they've seen all this stuff happen, where it's like, no, even prior to that, there was so much going on.
So generally, I would say the idea is there's kind of the idea that, right, everything has been done already.
nothing new under the sun.
Yes. That isn't necessarily wrong, but it's how you use it.
Right.
So, because, yeah, a lot of the media we consume is recycled ideas or shares a base premise. But, like, the original Alien is a really, really good movie. And it's just like... So, here's the thing, right? 1910 is when the first version of Frankenstein...
Mary Shelley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mary Shelley's 18-whatever-hundreds novel. Edison Studios made the first version of Frankenstein in 1910.
And, like, those were, like, the 1900s kind of gave way to the classics, like the Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes.
Sleepy Hollow. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Like, even, like, Hansel and Gretel, which almost...
Like,
at this point, to me, like, it feels like a children's book, but... Back then, it was actually a horrific type of...
But, like, even read the children's story of Hansel and Gretel. That's still a horror story.
Yeah,
well, yeah, I mean,
that's pretty creepy.
Like, dead ass, like, if you came to some old lady's house and ate her siding, and she was like, yo, come in and eat some more.
Yeah. Red flags.
100 fucking percent. She's trying to kill your ass. If you take a bite out of her house... And she wants to feed you more? Nah, she's going to kill you.
Nah, dog, I'm out.
Yeah. Fuck that noise.
That's not raw dog raunchy.
Oh, yeah, it is. Because she's eating children. And it's like the worst fucking way.
That's nah, dog, nope.
Yeah.
It's like, it's such a fucking, like, it's honestly the worst way to eat a kid. Not saying that there's like...
I was saying, is there really a good way?
But like, this motherfucker is just going to like boil them?
Do we need to check your basement?
What the... What? So, what, you're going to saute them?
No, it's painful. I'm just saying it's painful.
Well, yeah, because she's stuffing them full of stuff and then baking them alive in an oven.
Yeah, like...
Which,
okay.
Considering that's a German fairy tale...
Oh.
Wow.
That's bad.
That's so derivative. It's fucking derivative. Then
what have we discovered?
I can't even say... can I say that word? Nazi?
Well, yeah, I mean,
They're
if
fucking
not, just
derivative.
leave it later.
So, right?
As
we're
ghouls.
not approving of the behavior.
Right.
Like, that is fucked up.
Yeah.
That is really fucked up. Holy shit. There's some psychopath in old German. Oh, my gosh.
Fucking Mangala was out here like, I want to do this to somebody eventually. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fucked
it's
up.
Terrible. Fucked. Holy moly.
Fuck that dude.
So, wow.
Stop giving people ideas.
No, we went ahead and uncovered something deep. Right here, you've seen it first, or you've heard it first, because we are not a video; we're only audio. So
Video equipment's expensive.
yeah, so the genre kind of shifted, right? The reoccurring themes started to solidify more in like the 60s onward.
Yeah. Well, so just to go back to, I forget the exact name of the studio, but so you know how we had that recent like Mummy remake with Tom Cruise in it?
Yes.
And that was supposed to trigger Universal's monster movie multiverse franchise where they were trying to copy the MCU and stuff.
Universal needs to calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, Universal already had 5 monster movies that came out between like 1912 and 1929 that starred Frankenstein, Dracula. It was all those same monsters that they were just trying to use.
Right.
But they were called like IMB or something. I don't remember the exact company name. I didn't write it down. But
So we talked about Dawn of the Dead. Like, so Night of the Living Dead, it was George A. Romero's kind of first, that started to solidify the zombie genre, that was the genesis of the zombie genre.
yes.
Dawn of the Dead was really the popular version of it, right?
So the funny part is that that's not actually the highest grossing one of those movies.
I believe it.
Land of the Dead.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Come the fuck on.
That's the one that had the highest budget. It had a budget of $19 million and made like $50 million.
Okay, whatever. I'm not even gonna acknowledge it. I was gonna talk about how Night of the Living Dead, because it was in black and white, they had to use Hershey's chocolate syrup as blood because it came out better on camera in black and white. But now you went and fucked me up with that stupid Land of the Dead bullshit.
Okay,
that was a terrible movie.
Yeah, it was. Here's the thing, though, right? They didn't actually have special effects in the 1968 one.
Yes, it was all like basically lunch meat and
Yeah.
chocolate syrup.
So that's the funny part, though. The 1990 remake, they got the one guy to come back because it was the first time that the 3 guys who made Night of the Living Dead, the original, had worked together in over 20 years.
Right.
And they said, you actually get special effects this time. But it's funny, out of respect for the 1968 version, they actually kept it very
practical.
mum. Yes.
Yeah.
They kept it very mum on the special effects.
Right.
Which I feel like kind of works out better in a horror sphere anyway, because I feel like the more, computer generated CGI you get, it's not the same visceral kind of.
Well, not to drag up the xenomorph corpse again, but Alien, the first one, Aliens itself is kind of an action horror movie, but game over, man, game over. But also a good movie, but for different reasons.
Yes.
But the original Alien, it's just a dude in a suit. And it's funny because it's like, I hadn't seen the movie because I rewatched it with my wife a couple years ago at this point.
Yep.
I hadn't seen it in 20 years. But so we were watching it on Amazon Prime, and Prime has that detail pop-up thing. And it said the dude's name, and I'm like, he's in this scene because she's in the shuttle where she's escaping.
Right.
And sure enough, she starts walking around, looking around because the cat's like, something ain't right here.
Mm.
And she walks by some of the tubing, and you can see his outline in it. But it does hold up really well.
That's awesome. That is fantastic.
And I feel like that's kind of the impressive part of practical effects as opposed to CGI, because everything CGI becomes dated eventually.
Yeah.
And when it becomes dated, it
You
becomes
know.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
it's
gosh.
badly
So,
dated.
look-
Like the Final Destination movies.
Yeah. where
So
it's-
here's one for you. Not necessarily a horror movie when it starts out, but it ends up there. Jurassic Park, the first one. Think about it.
Oh,
That goes from a scientific exploration of dinosaurs to a fucking survival horror movie.
it does.
yeah, it really does.
It flips the
Especially when the fucking raptors get out.
Yeah.
'Cause Samuel L. Jackson's character, the one lady's going back to turn on the power, and she's like, oh, thank God, it's you. And it's his fucking arm, because, the raptors fucking ate him
Yeah, and they had
and positioned his arm to lure someone else in.
that was so
And that was all practical.
so how bad are the new ones in comparison? They are so neutered.
Okay,
They really
okay,
are.
okay.
Because remember when they were getting chased by the T-Rex, and the one dude got stomped,
Yeah.
and then his like limp body was stuck to the dinosaur's foot like a gum wrapper.
Yeah.
That shit. What? Oh my golly, that was.
So here's the thing. I haven't seen Dominion yet, but I have seen 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yes.
If I were to rank them, the original is still the best. Lost World I used to rank lower, but you know what? I went on like a Jurassic Park binge like a year ago.
Yeah.
And Lost World actually holds up really well.
Huh.
So I would probably rate them 1, 2, 4, 5, 3.
Okay. Interesting ranking. I don't know. I feel like I do have to agree with the newer things I've gotten. I feel like generally horror has become more like tamed because
It's not as visceral as like when the one guy's going to take a shit and then the T-Rex just knocks it over and fucking eats him off the toilet.
yeah. Because I feel like you could pretty much
Which,
call
what a
it
shitty way to go.
instead of calling
But
it. Oh, Lord. But instead of calling it Jurassic World, I feel like you could call it Marvel's Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Because like
With,
everything just kind of turned into this big, epic action thing instead
Yeah.
of just
pieces.
they
They had Star-Lord.
yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying is like it kind of like I mean, which
Yeah, but I actually like the Guardians movies.
here's the thing. I love
Yeah,
Chris.
I'm
I
not
love
gonna-
Chris Pratt. I love the Guardians movies. I like he does really well in his movies. It's just the material that he's given is just
Well, in those movies, it's
yeah,
So-
yeah.
So, as far as the horror genre goes, like we're starting with, surprisingly enough, Jurassic Park. We're starting to get into the modern format of horror. So we've passed the Night of the Living Dead, the Dawn of the Dead. We're starting to get into that, like the Aliens territory where we're starting to get into characters.
So you got to remember, the original Alien came out sometime in the 1970s. I think it's actually might be older than Star Wars. Yeah.
Whoa.
The original Alien, it's around the same time as like A New Hope. Like
Yeah.
when that first came out. Jurassic Park came out in the 90s.
Yeah, so my timeline's stupid, but I guess it was the segue. It was
Yeah.
a segue.
Well, I think where you're going for is it shifted monster focus.
Yeah, where now we're starting to focus on the character, and we have, now we've had the Draculas, the Frankensteins,
Yeah.
but we've started to get into these now
Right,
the
but-
edgy, the omnipotent, like
The Hot Topic T-shirts.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, so the thing about Frankenstein that makes it so good is it's kind of a play on man's inhumanity to man.
yeah, but that's not how these new characters are.
Yeah, I know.
They're less
and-
commentary, and they're more like, this is the one that you should be scared of. Shit your fucking pants. Here it is.
It's become a mascot.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
The
here's,
mascot of horror.
here's the other thing, though, right? I think Marvel has done the thing where they get people in seats for 2.5, 3 hours.
Yes.
Now, granted, Lord of the Rings did the same damn thing, and I'm like, constantly talking about this, where it's like, I don't feel like watching Lord of the Rings, but then it's like, I'll watch a 3-hour YouTube video.
Yep.
Regardless.
About Lord of the Rings.
No.
I've done this before. I do want to point that out.
I mean, the extended versions are like 4.5 hours. It's ridiculous. But, so, the big thing I'm enjoying more is short horror movies that are like 15 minutes or less. There's an entire... We kind of watched the one where we did the analog horror with the Mandela County stuff.
Yep.
Half an hour or less. Those built tension very well. They didn't show the monster until the third one. Yep. And it's for like 30 seconds. And that's not the only version of that monster.
I think that format, it helps maintain that tension so well. If you haven't checked that out, Crimson, you should try it. Mandela catalogs. Yeah. Really amazing short stories.
They're by a guy named Alex Kister on YouTube. If you haven't watched them, I highly recommend it.
And it's like, lower production value, but...
Well, it's analog horror. It's got that VHS, like, 8-track...
Yeah.
Well, you know what I did realize, though, when speaking of lower production value, I realized that a lot of people, when they're given less to work with, they work more creatively.
Make or break.
Yeah, exactly. So you come out with something better because you figure out all the ways to still toy with somebody's kind of fear reflex.
Right.
Without having to have this special effect and this character and this.
So that was going to be the other thing I brought up. I feel like I actually enjoy horror movies that are rated PG-13 more than those that are rated R.
I know exactly where you're starting to go with this.
Right. So the thing is that PG-13 can't rely on gruesome gore.
The torture porn.
Yes. They have to go more for... And this is why... So, speaking of more modern horror movies, I actually really like the first Saw movie.
The very first one.
The first one was really, really fucking good. Because, yes, it had some gruesome scenes in it, but they maintained the shock factor because they weren't everywhere in the franchise. But, like, when the one dude gets shotgunned in the neck and the head, that's one of the scenes. When the doctor cuts off his fucking foot, that's another scene. And then you see a couple of the traps go off in the movie, or you see their aftermath. But it doesn't, like...
It doesn't get too deep. It doesn't
It doesn't get too Rube Goldberg.
Oh my gosh! Like the further Saw movies get,
because that's the thing is like when you look at it and it's like this dude chopped his own foot off because he was just trapped in a bathroom,
right?
Shackled to this pipe that he couldn't get off of.
Because the other guy let the key go down the fucking drain.
Exactly, and it's like this is an act of desperation.
Right,
this is
it's
like
real.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and it's like and it evokes that when you see this guy do this, it's like. Oh,
it's funny, though, because, he's like, oh, if you cut your foot off and crawl out of this room, you'll get to live. Well, that doesn't happen. Yeah. That guy didn't spring up and put a tourniquet on the poor bastard. He's like, I got free. Where's my end of the fucking deal?
And, like, so that's kind of, in my opinion, where horror movies dropped off is, like, the post-Saw, like...
So you're kind of starting to see a renaissance, though. Like,
it's coming back, yeah.
Yes. Like, John Krasinski's A Quiet Place 1 and 2.
Yes.
I think Bird Box? Is that the one on Netflix?
Yeah.
That one's supposed to be really good. I haven't watched it. I kind of want to, because
it's like more of a thriller, though.
Yes, but they never show the monster because they're like,
That's so important.
It depends on your monster. Because... In Alien, you have to show the monster eventually. Otherwise, there's no payoff.
Yep.
So it's one of those things, right? Where you have to build the tension. The face hugger is the first piece of the monster, and we see it grow and evolve. And then eventually it's this big, almost unkillable machine.
Yes.
Whereas something like Bird Box, it plays on your senses because your characters can't see because that's how it kills you. A Quiet Place is you can't speak. So they all know sign language and everything.
That is a sick concept, yeah.
So here's the other one, though. Lights Out. It originally was this little, I think it's like 12 to 15 minutes on YouTube. If you haven't watched it, highly recommend it. They made like a 2-hour feature-length film that did really well for an indie horror. But the original concept is it's just this lady, and like she's getting ready to go to bed. She's brushing her teeth in the bathroom, and she turns off the hall light. She sees a figure standing at the end of the hallway.
I've seen this
Yes,
one. Holy
you know what I'm
fuck.
talking about. So my favorite thing is that in Lights Out, the actual full-length feature film, they got the actor from the YouTube short.
Oh.
And she's there in the beginning, and the lights go off in like this warehouse, and she sees the figure, and she waves, and the lights come back on, and she just leaves. She's like, I'm not doing this shit again.
That's fucking awesome. That's
so there's like this
amazing.
nice little Easter egg at the beginning of it. So you can turn horror into a longer thing, but you have to play very carefully with showing your monster.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the big problems with... So Saw did very well. They did not show their killer, their actual killer, until the very end, after the doctor cuts his foot off and crawls out. The dude who has been dead in the bathroom gets up and is like, you had your chance, closes the door, locks it. That dude starves to death in there. Because in Saw 2, the cop goes back and it's that same fucking bathroom.
Yep.
Which Saw 2 was actually still okay. Saw 3 is where it starts really getting bad.
After Saw 3, yeah. So they tried to start that series back up with Spiral,
Yes.
and that...
I haven't seen it.
How
so.
did that turn out?
Okay, so casting-wise...
I know it has Chris Rock in it.
And Samuel L. Jackson plays his father.
Uh-huh.
Questionable choices.
That's hard to... It's hard to sell them as characters that are... So as actors, they have never played characters that have ever been in a... They don't have the upper hand, or there's no way that they're making a move to get forward on something.
Right.
Oh, that...
How can you let... I don't know. As actors, I don't think that they could sell... And they didn't.
And that's a
So
big
it's not
deal.
good.
Like
It's not good.
a lot of people don't realize because they cast for star power, but at the same time, you have to suspend.
Okay.
Reality.
So just to bring back George A. Romero, he actually did not like casting top-of-the-line actors. He wanted to give lesser-known names their spot in the light.
That's like the best way to do it because you remember that what was that one where Daniel Craig was like...
Oh my gosh, it was right off the ass of Casino Royale.
That's what I'm saying.
And Daniel Craig is in a horror movie.
Yeah, this
really
man
007
played,
fucking kicked that
He
ghost.
played James Bond. He was no less jacked than he was
Isn't
in
he
James
still
Bond.
technically James Bond?
He is. He's still currently James Bond, and it's like
Yep.
you expect me for any moment to believe that this guy can't handle himself in any
You
other
fucking
situation.
kick that ghost, or you pull out a silenced pistol and blow its fucking
Right.
brains
See,
out.
so the thing is that you would have to take that and put it in
Unbelievable.
Predator or Alien for that to work.
And even still, you're not gonna believe that he doesn't have the upper hand.
He's
Against
going to be the one that
Predator?
survives at the end.
He beat that ass.
Okay. So there's actually, I've read like a very solid theory on how the Predator and Alien movie like sort of encompass the idea of toxic femininity and toxic masculinity. This is a very interesting read. I'll have to see if I can find the article for you guys. Okay. So generally, everyone in Dutch's unit in Predator is just these big,
Fucking
beefy,
brawling.
just
Kick-ass.
manly men. Think about how Dutch survives, though. He runs away, he hides, he plans.
He does the mud thing.
Yes. So he does all this stuff that is seen as cowardly or weak, or I don't want to come off as sounding misogynistic in this. What's the word I'm looking for?
This is not personal
Demure.
opinion. Yeah,
Yes, it's not. The article goes into it better than I'm articulating here. But it's basically he's learning that the traits of his friends who are all gung-ho, like, I'm going to go find this. Because remember, Carl Weathers is his friend who survives the longest. But he tries to go head-to-head with Predator and dies.
Right.
So all these guys act like
I-
macho men and fucking die. Whereas Dutch ends up acting more demure, more feminine. I'm using air quotes here. But he takes his time. He thinks. He runs away. He doesn't just gun in there. So he kills Predator by adapting all of what his friends have died to and using it against them. Now,
kind of
Alien
impressive.
is actually the opposite. Sigourney Weaver, Ellen Ripley. There we go.
Yeah, boy.
She survives because she actually is the one that doesn't act afraid. She goes the very like predator gung-ho masculine route. Because remember, everybody else ends up like being afraid or scared and is like retracting into themselves, except for the android, but it's a fucking robot.
He doesn't have emotions.
It can't
He's
be
a
right.
bullshit.
But Dallas is one of the people, the captain. He's one of the middle people to die because he's the fourth person left alive. But he gets killed in the vents because he didn't just go for it. He didn't use the flamethrower, and that's
Right.
what kills him. Ellen shows none of that fucking hesitation or anything.
That's fucking crazy.
Right. And this is where it's kind of interesting because you have Dutch has to take traits that have worked because him and his group are elite commandos. They've rushed in on all these fucking like
They've
drug gangs and stuff and kicked their ass like that. He can't do that against Predator. Ellen Ripley, she can't hesitate. That's how the one guy gets the face hugger.
Yeah, she can't plan. She can't be.
She just had to act.
Yo, that's a little bit fucking
The
cool.
story behind the story.
Yeah,
That's
bro.
crazy.
And when you look at the first two movies in parallel like that, it kind of creates a very interesting like mind game effect to it.
And then in Alien vs Predator, they shaky cam beat each other's ass.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Alien vs Predator wasn't good, but that kind of makes sense why they kind of not are they just two different iconic series, but ideologically,
yes,
they've crossed over so many times.
Crazy.
That's really fucking sick.
I'm impressed by that. That's crazy.
All right, man.
I'll have to see if I can find those articles because they're really good reads.
Yeah, I definitely, if you find it and send it to me because I want to see this.
So let's talk about we're gonna talk about an individual movie that kind of stands out. I have a movie that when I first watched it, like I dead ass could not sleep after it, and this was kind of like the last movie that's ever done that to me. Like when you're a real little kid and you watch horror movies, everything scares the living shit out of you, right? But this one in particular, and this was like in my early teens.
Okay, so
I watched
13.
Yeah, I was like, man, I might have been like 14 or something.
13, 14s, early teens.
Right. So 28 days later.
Okay.
Right?
Oh.
Okay. So this.
Like that one though.
Yeah. So.
You mean the movie that allowed George A. Romero to start making zombie movies again because he took a break in the 90s from those?
Yeah. So
Land
Danny
of the Dead, Diary of the Dead.
So Danny Boyle, who directed this movie, he was obviously heavily inspired by Romero. So I'm trying to think. He did Slumdog Millionaire, the Steve Jobs movie. He did Yesterday, which was like a weird isekai type situation where the dude ends up in a
We're talking about Isekai and a horror.
he woke up in a world where the Beatles didn't exist and he wrote all their songs. He because he remembered the song, so he kind of became famous creating the Beatles songs.
Right.
It's an interesting flick. Okay. Anywho, we're talking about the horror movie, 28 Days Later. So this movie is still, it still holds up as one of the best zombie movies.
To be fair, it's like the first one I can think of that really had the fast zombie.
Yeah.
Which kind of gave birth to like Left 4 Dead stuff.
It really changed. It did. It was kind of a big game changer as far as of how that all worked.
Little side note before you continue, I do believe that the Walking Dead TV show beginning was probably inspired by 28 Days Later.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Because the main character wakes up from a coma.
Yes.
He's a courier. He got hit by a
No,
car.
he was a cop.
No, I'm not talking about Walking Dead.
Okay. You're talking about
28 days.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought we were still on Walking Dead.
Share the similarities. You
Right,
can compare them.
So, just as a little thing, it was produced on an $8 million budget. That shit grossed $82 million. And
that man was happy.
It actually got a boost during the pandemic. For some reason, like that movie hit good during the pandemic.
Wait, like the COVID pandemic, the West Nile virus pandemic?
Come on, dog. Come on, dog. It's 2022. What you think?
Okay, but like,
he's like,
that
there's many
came out in what, 2002?
Yeah.
So
No. Yeah,
West Nile virus was a thing back then.
I'm not talking about
Zika, swine flu, avian flu.
No, there's
bird flu was the fucking thing when this movie came out.
Why do you know all history?
No, but I'm just trying to say that nobody called those the pandemic. Come on.
At the time, they did.
I think it's a timing thing. I do agree with that.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Okay, so how about this?
Because that's the thing. Aren't the zombies in that movie because of a flu?
Yes.
So it was
Right.
called the rage virus, and it was discovered in chimps, and so like I always laugh about the beginning of this movie because it was brought about because of animal rights activists, and they went into a testing facility that these monkeys were infected with a virus.
Yes.
And they were like, these monkeys deserve to be free. And they opened up all the cages. And then the monkeys started fucking people up.
Yeah.
And then it created the...
So it's the plot of Planet of the Apes.
It was like...
Except they didn't get smart. They got zombies.
They got mad.
Get smart, get zombie.
Well, I mean, there's one of two ways you can go. Brain big, brain dead.
Yeah.
Right? So...
I love that.
So, fun fact... This is one of the breakout roles to Crimson's man crush, Cillian Murphy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Why don't you just deny that, though?
No, never. I will never. He inspires everything I do.
So, Boyle...
Peaky Blinders, watch it.
So, Boyle chose these relatively no-name actors.
In Ramiro style.
Yeah, it was basically the Ramiro revival.
Yeah.
And that movie, the way it was shot,
It fucked you up.
yeah, it was
that's
insane. That movie was, and it's still really fucking good.
okay, but to
Yeah.
go back to the whole thing that it said virus in chimpanzees, that tracks way more with swine flu and avian flu.
Come on, dog. I'm not talking about real world.
Now hold
I
on.
refuse.
Hold on. I do want to throw it out there that movie did originally have an everybody dies ending.
It did.
Yep. The original ending of that was supposed to be nobody survived,
Yeah.
and it was just very dramatic and sad. And they changed it because that didn't test well with the people.
No, because that movie hit so hard the whole way.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you know
And
what
they
that
had-
kind of reminds me of? I Am Legend with Will Smith.
Yeah.
They changed that. They changed that.
Well, they have
that
two
ending, that
endings.
ending too.
They have the one where he's just like, get in here, here's the cure. And he takes a hand grenade out and just charges the dude and kills all the Dark Stalkers or whatever the fuck they are and himself. And it's the woman and her son left. And then there's the other ending where it's he lets the guy's mate go and they just leave. And then him and the woman and her son go to the settlement in Vermont.
See, now here's the thing. I will say this though, as far as like impactful ending, I feel like that they made the right choice with I Am Legend because like,
Well, which ending are you going with as canon, though?
Well, that's tough because I do know they're making a sequel, if I remember correctly.
Is Will Smith in it?
I think Will Smith
Then
is
that,
in
that
it.
would seem to belie that the ending where he gives back the guy's mate is the
Is
canon.
the
should
canon
use a
ending.
great ending for
That's
that
what I'm saying, because here's the thing. It is gut-wrenching and
Right.
sad and just... Because when you think about horror, right, one of the biggest aspects of horror is
the
that...
visceral reaction.
Yes, reality. Nothing always works out perfectly. You know what I'm saying?
But like back to 28 Days Later, I think that weirdly enough,
Fucking Shaun of the Dead.
I think that weirdly
that
enough,
was the perfect happy ending.
the happy ending works, right? Because in a way, it really preempted the entirety of The Walking Dead's shtick. Was fight the dead, fear the living.
Right.
That was The Walking Dead's.
I'm not on drugs. They did a remake of Day of the Dead that had David Arquette in it, didn't they? Because they get on a boat and they go to an island because that's supposed to be the safe place, but it's already full of fucking zombies.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
fuck.
Yep. And there
He's
was
like, I'm not
that
on
was
drugs.
that was the one that I watched. That was what got me into the
Yeah,
Dead
yeah,
series.
yeah. That because
Yeah, I
And
remember
it had
that one.
Ving
'cause-
Rhames.
No, not the 1990
Chill, dog.
Night of the Living Dead remake.
are we thinking about two different films here?
I'm talking about a remake of Day of the Dead with David Arquette in it. Because they're
No,
in a-
David Arquette was in.
Is that Land of the Dead?
No, it's
it's
Day of the Dead.
We've discovered something. We had the wrong entry point, I think.
fucking chill. I'm gonna have. Oh gosh.
Well, we're gonna have to retroactively.
Years
do
of
some
academy training wasted. But that was my movie that it still sticks with me. And I think it still checks hard. Yeah, I don't think for me it gets better than 28 Days Later. The sequel fucking sucked.
Yeah,
28 weeks.
but
yeah.
that I do want to say this real quick before we continue. That's why I don't think the happy ending works. Because the sad ending, they probably wouldn't have made a sequel. That probably would have been the end of that.
because
I know it's not directly related, but I'm just saying that.
But think about every zombie mythos. 28 days is about as long as it takes for them to starve.
Okay.
When Jim, the main character, wakes up. Oh, see, I always get real fucking weary about saying the actual names of the characters because I think it is Jim.
I mean, it's a generic enough name that you're probably right.
Fair enough.
So when he wakes up,
Coral!
things are really bad, and like for instance, the army guys, they have given up all hope that the world exists, and that's why they're sending out this broadcast, and they're trying to like kidnap women and force them into sex slavery and all this crazy fucking shit because they dealt with almost 30 days of absolute fucking balls out horror and 360-degree combat every fucking day.
That's funny because that actually reminds me a lot of the plot of Diary of the Dead.
So when they break loose, the reality is they were on the cusp of it just being over. So the happy ending checks 100%.
The problem is
a
that
good
all
argument.
it takes is one person to be stupid, one zombie to get stuck in ice, anything like that.
Oh, come on.
I mean, all right. So here's what I'm gonna say. So I've had a recent run in. So my little personal experience with the horror, I'm going to take in the route of very bad movies, right?
Velocipaster?
We're not gonna go with Velocipaster. I feel like that's an obvious choice. So here's the thing: the horror space, I feel like, is the most polluted with terrible movies,
Right.
I would agree.
because I feel like a lot of people think it's the easy way out. Now, recently, this might be a bit insulting because Eli Roth is a name in horror, right? You can recognize that name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Though it might not be oh wow, Eli Roth, he's got all these amazing movies. It's a recognizable name in horror, right?
And a little bit of that M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, that it's
of-
kind of that effect, So he's the M. Night Shyamalan of horror. I love that.
Yo, that's
that's like the most accurate description of
that
Eli
is
Roth.
somehow the most fucking insulting thing I've ever heard. You're the fucking M. Night Shyamalan of horror.
I love it. Okay. So I recently watched, probably within the last couple months, I watched The Green Inferno.
The fuck is
Yo,
that?
that sounds so bad.
So it is as bad as it sounds. So it is on Netflix, which if you want to find a bad horror movie, pick
Netflix.
almost anything on Netflix.
Okay, Netflix.
Word.
Not to like steal too much time from you. There's this thing called Ghosts of Sherwood that has like zombie Robin Hood. My wife and I did a challenge to see how far in we could get in it. We had about 5 minutes, and then we skipped to the end, and everyone was dead. So
Yeah.
we saved about 2 hours of time.
So that's horrible. So here's the thing.
Hot.
The thing about this movie, right? So speaking of activists, basically the idea of the movie is there's a schoolgirl who falls in love with a fellow school dude who happens to be in a group of activists, right? And they're like the social kind of economical activists who, there's this tribe and they're building all this, modern day society where these tribes live and we have to go fight against it, right? And he's kind of an extremist. He's a little on the edge. So he's like, we're going to travel there and we're going to physically get in the way. We're going to tie ourselves to trees and like literally to that extent where they're like, we're not going to. Now, the thing about this tribe, right? They're cannibals. So, and they tell you about the tribe at the start of the movie because in the school, they're learning about this tribe.
Okay.
They're cannibals, and there just happens to be a whole lot of genital mutilation that goes on.
What?
Hi-yo!
Yeah, so here's the thing.
Well, that escalated quickly.
Yep.
It really does. So they take virgin women. I can't remember exactly why they do it because this movie
Is this
was
going into,
nonsense.
like female circumcision or some shit.
It's pretty much that.
That's
They find
fucked.
virgin women, and for some reason, as soon as they find a virgin woman, they freak out and they say, "Let's go chop up."
Pele demands
Their
a sacrifice.
Yeah, everybody else just gets cut up and eaten, but if it's a virgin female, genital mutilation, right? So here's the thing.
No, I think that's actually fucking horrifying.
It is. The concept is horrifying. Now, here's the thing. Actors can make and break any film, but especially
Writing is important.
Writing is definitely important, but here's the thing. Good actors can take a lot of really subpar stuff and make it amazing, right?
Okay,
So,
but here's my counter to that. You can have a mediocre actor. If you give them great writing, they're a great fucking actor.
they could be inspired. I do agree there. That was not what happened here.
Yes.
So here's the thing, right? So you kind of know the kind of camp and cheese that comes with. It's kind
Shitty
of like
horror movies.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So it's kind of like Evil Dead. Now here's the thing: Evil Dead is a cult classic, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Nobody can look at Evil Dead and say that the acting was good.
Bruce
So,
Campbell was good.
I love Bruce Campbell.
I love Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
So
Army
okay,
of Darkness is probably my favorite. Of
Yes,
those.
yes. It evolves into something, right? So this is the problem with this movie, right? It's a horrifying concept,
Yeah.
but
It's not executed or tactical.
at all because we have some of the most terrible actors and actresses I have seen in film recently, to the point where, like, you remember like the old kind of like Resident Evil, the original Resident Evil, where
Yeah,
it's like,
the intro FMV.
yeah, it's like that level of acting.
Have you seen that?
That I
For the PlayStation 1, you need
Yeah,
to watch
I've
that.
seen
That's some horror gold
I have seen it.
as far as being bad.
So when we're
But
talking
that's
about
so bad it's good.
Yes.
this is not.
It's bad and just goes down.
Because yeah, exactly. Because take a concept that is so horrifying as that, right? If you don't have good actors to convey the fact that it is indeed gut-wrenching and horrifying, it now becomes this weird, embarrassing, and pseudo like creepy kind of
Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, exactly. Because now it's like you see random naked women, and it's like everything's about vaginas.
So this
and
is a
it's
horror movie. This is literally a porno horror movie.
This is a porno horror movie, borderline, and it's like,
Oh.
so yeah, it becomes very, very awkward, and it all starts out really nice. Like I said, they're all tied to trees, whatever.
Yep.
These people are coming to.
It starts out very nice. They're all tied to trees.
What? Hold on.
Radical
Wait. Pause.
You said this was called the Green Inferno,
Yes.
right? You said that, and I actually got more images of like St. Elmo's fire in Tierra del Fuego down at the fucking end of South America.
I was thinking like Maleficent breathing fire.
So
and this just
yeah, very.
So like Flying Dutchman, like pirate sea horror was where I was going.
Well, that's
not
why-
tribal cannibalistic genital mutilation, bad acting.
This is why I was surprised by what I've seen, because
Word,
I didn't
word.
expect the Green Inferno.
I'm surprised too.
Yeah. It shocked the shit
Is
out
it
of me.
because
and
it's like it's a tribe of cannibals in a forest? Is that why it's
maybe,
the Green Inferno?
Maybe it was supposed to be like
Was there fire at all?
no.
Oh.
There was no fire. They didn't. I mean, they cooked people, but like.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's not really a part of the Soylent Greens. Is that the metaphor
Like,
here?
I wonder where the idea for the Green Inferno came from. Now, I mean, to summarize it, like it was
You've already done that.
yeah, summarized it pretty well, right? But to summarize my thoughts, it was a decent concept for something that could have been horrifying, even though I'm not really much a fan of the body horror stuff.
Right.
You know, it is a very scary concept to think about, that you traveled to this location for this great reason, and the people who you were sitting there and like
Trying to protect.
turned around and
that shit fucking has happened a lot in human history. That happened recently.
But I think that's kind of it, like we were talking about earlier, where it's like
You don't think they were trying to capitalize on that, like one like missionary who went to that one island and got killed and eaten by the locals, do you?
that would be. That's just low.
That's on the nose.
I didn't even think about that.
That's like just hearing that plot. That's very
Yeah.
that was very recent. Like, how old is this movie?
No, it's new-ish. I think.
So-
I want to say 2019. I think
That
it was.
sounds about right for that timeline. So,
Yeah. Ooh, that's a big oof.
So like, yeah. Wow.
But yeah, no, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about, where reality is oftentimes one of the most horrifying things, right? So if you take something that's derivative of something that has actually happened, it can be significantly scarier if you do not execute it well.
If you're not a fucking pervert like fucking Eli Roth.
Yeah, I truly believe that there's
That guy's like fucking pervert.
yeah. Yeah.
well, he's the M. Night Shyamalan of horror.
Yep.
Okay, so you know what? If I had to actually pick one, I'm going to pick the original Alien.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
bro, let's go.
1979. I looked it up. So it was after the first Star Wars, because that was 77. But it's in that same time frame. Now, I fucking love sci-fi.
Yes.
I love sci-fi. Horror, I fucking love sci-fi. Because it's very interesting to see what could be. I'm a big Star Wars and Star Trek fan. Yeah, guess what, people? You can like both.
Get yourself a dude who can do both.
Get yourself a Throne Award.
I'm already married, so fuck it.
Too late. He's off the market.
But, like we were talking about, practical effects hold up better over time. And it's just like, so that movie is literally 43 years old now, almost. Actually, it is. It's past it, because it was May 25th, 1979.
Wow. Ooh.
So, 40 years later, granted, I wasn't alive when the movie came out. Like I said earlier in this episode, I'm 30. So, this movie's fucking 14 years older than me, roughly. But it gets into, it's really 13, but anyway. It's one of those things where it's an exploration of, we get to all this like weird shit. Just if you've never really like studied any kind of space shit, astronomy is fascinating. And Alien kind of plays on our fear of the abyss, right? Ocean stuff does this too.
Oh, yep.
But space is interesting because you don't necessarily have to obey the rules of Earth. If you make an ocean horror movie, it's got to at least... You're either going to end up with
Jaws.
There's been enough motherfuckers in pools to know how water works.
But not only that, it's either you end up with some like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea bullshit, or you have to follow the laws of Earth.
Right.
And yeah, Jaws is a good horror movie, though. That's a very good movie.
It is.
The later movies, not so much. But
What about Sharknado, man?
It evolved.
It evolved.
but Tremors is another interesting one.
Ooh.
Not good, necessarily. I like the Tremors movies.
Yes.
I would not say anything after the first one is good.
Yes.
Yes.
They did switch focus, though. I will
did.
say that little side note again. That once they realized that they couldn't really keep up with everything else as far as horror goes, they switched focus to a more like horror comedy kind of thing.
Yes.
So it's got,
They've evolved.
That's bullshit.
yeah.
Horror comedy works, though. Look at Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead is still one of my favorite movies.
That is a
to date.
fantastic movie.
To date.
But Alien itself, even Tremors...
We should just watch that movie.
We should definitely.
I'm down. Tremors, though, kind of, even though they're an alien-esque creature, they still use like things that we have seen from creatures on Earth.
Right.
They have like their weird echolocation, their heat vision. There are things that track by heat, kind of mosquitoes, fuckers. But
I hate mosquitoes.
yeah, mosquitoes are the most pointless thing on this planet.
Male nipples is like a close second.
I might give you a little bit of body horror here, but you can lactate. That's right. They can
Desperate
work.
times call for desperate measures.
No.
It is
Fuck
possible
off.
for those to work.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a hairy mouthful, but
if you gotta be mama.
oof, there is no mama. Oof, there is no mama.
And they're like, there's hair in it. My God, there's hair in it.
Oh Lord.
That is such a weird episode of Family Guy. But anyway, back to Alien. So the xenomorphs, right? The way they reproduce is horrifying. Just from the start, John Hurt's character is looking over the fucking thing. It opens up and just attaches itself through his fucking space mask. Now, here's the thing, right? Those suits have to be pressurized to maintain oxygen for a person. They have to maintain something for you. So the fact that this thing is going through plexiglass, which should be fairly thick, because again, it has to keep your fleshy, bulbous head intact and safe.
Don't talk about my fucking head like that, man.
And this thing just goes through it and shoves a tentacle down your throat and spits a thing into your stomach. And then that just... So, to go into how the aliens actually, like, what they do is they pull DNA from whatever they're in. That's why in AVP, it's a different looking xenomorph at the end of the movie, because it has predator DNA, not human.
Is it bad that I didn't know?
I didn't even think about that. Yep.
So, basically... The reason the xenomorphs look like they do is because they're all human-based xenomorphs in the original movies. But what ends up happening is that so it takes your DNA, and then once it grows large enough, it bursts out of your chest. And like Wayland Yutani the entire time knows what's going on, which, surprise, surprise, corporations are evil. But they end up going for, like, it bursts out of your chest, and then it's in the fucking vents. Because it's like, any tools they try to use to take the facehugger off, it burns it with fucking acid. And it's, like, fucking hardcore acid.
Yep.
As we know from D&D, though, they should have got sand.
Yep.
D&D teaches everything about our lives right now.
But, so, just the idea that you could go out and explore space And there could be something like that.
Because truth be told, that's kind of one of the good things about something that we don't fully understand is
You
that
can play with it.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing, right? The universe is unfathomably large.
Yep.
You have to remember, the furthest back we can view is roughly 13.7 billion years, because that's how long it takes that light to reach us. So a light year is distance.
Didn't know that.
To give you an idea, so it's possible that there's stuff beyond that, but that's just what we can see.
Okay.
Because that's what's reached us. A light year measures distance, and it's roughly 6 trillion miles per light year. So the closest star to us that's not Sol, our sun, is Alpha Centauri. It's 4 light years. It's like 4.4, but that's 24 trillion miles. Voyager 1 launched in 1977, I think. It just cleared the outer reaches of our solar system a couple years ago. And it's been traveling for almost 50 years, going at like 60,000 miles an hour. Which, that's incredibly fast when you think about it.
Yeah.
But light travels at 186,000 miles a second.
Why the fuck are you putting this on me, bro?
Because that's the fathomability of sci-fi. That's why it's so much fun to play with.
Yeah.
Because sci-fi gives you avenues. So H.R. Geiger is the work that heavily inspired Alien.
Right.
That's why all that stuff looks like it does. And the lighting is the way it is and everything. Is because they wanted to capture that horribly alien feeling. And it does it really well.
Yeah.
And I weirdly enough, I feel like that was the first and only like series that really captured how scary like alien shit can be. Because like
Predator does an okay job as well, but that's established.
But it's very earthly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the Predators come to Earth to challenge Earth warriors because that's their whole thing.
and
but
they're weaponized.
They operate in a very earthly
Militaristic,
fashion.
yeah.
They bust it. I mean, they just
They just
do
had
is,
better tact.
yeah, they kick ass. They just have better weapons.
Which is kind of interesting because with what you just said, it makes me wonder why there isn't better sci-fi horror films.
Because it's very easy to go too far.
Have you ever played Dead Space?
I have not.
Oh,
I have
Dead
watched
Space
the first one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before they decided, the second one isn't bad, but
Third
before
one-
they decided to go action-y,
Yeah.
Dead Space 1, where you're just a fucking engineer who has a fucking, effectively a staple gun. I love that game.
I love that game.
It's good, but
Holy
I'll
fuck.
admit, I'm too much of a bitch to play that game.
I hit my microphone. We have to play that game.
I couldn't deal. Like, it was me and Crimson, literally sitting like within 3 inches of each other, and every time I moved the fucking mouse, it was just
yeah, dude.
Right, because there's shit that plays dead that if you walk by it, gets up and just fucking kills you.
It's so, and all the fucking monsters are so fucking.
They were so they were
so weird and alien.
Yeah.
You got the 0G section. Like, I've watched playthroughs of the game.
Yeah.
And the way that it fucks with your mind before
Yes.
it turns you into a fucking necromorph.
Yeah, because
Holy shit.
and that's the biggest thing is like if you are going to show your creature, right, you have to give it this. I can't really understand what I'm looking at. So here's the thing.
That's why H.P. Lovecraft works.
Yep.
Yes, and I feel like if you look at
That's
any
cosmic.
yeah,
horror.
if you look at any good monster design, it's something Lovecraft-esque.
Okay.
Where it's
So there is another effective human or effective monster design, and that's the very humanoid, because that gets into the uncanny valley situation of like, because here's the thing, right?
Like so human, but not.
Right. There's an actual. Because here's the thing, right? We all sort of have that uncanny valley fear. It's almost like an instinctual thing where we look at something that's too human
it's just like, ugh.
and it just wigs us out.
Yeah, we look at the game too human, and it makes us fucking.
That game is bad. But here's the thing, right?
Damn it.
It goes into like what in our ancestry did we face as Homo sapiens that made us go, if it looks too much like us, why are we afraid of it?
We're all sitting here looking around the table like, oh.
There's an actual thing called imposter syndrome.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, now I'm gonna doubt everybody who I come in contact with.
Well, so there's an actual thing where it's like there are people who, like, if they're talking on the phone to their loved ones, they'll believe it's them, but if they see them, they're like, no, that's a fucking imposter. There's actually a really good episode of Criminal Minds that goes into this because it's like a veteran.
I actually
Stop
like
with Criminal Minds.
I like that. I
and
like that show.
He has this disorder because like he ends up killing his parents because they're holding his child hostage, and he's like about to kill his wife and kid, but they talk him down and everything, and they have to fucking lock him up because he's a danger to anyone he knows.
That's so bad because I love that show, but I don't think I've seen that episode.
So I guess it kind of goes to show that, like, freak people out with very human
or
or
so
yes.
far out there you don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And so that's the funny thing, right? To go back to Alien, the xenomorphs kind of fall in the middle there, though. It's a bipedal creature, so it's humanoid, but it's got the extra fucking mouth. It's got the tail. It's that weird bulbous head.
Yeah.
So it takes both elements.
Yeah, because it's almost, and it's like a weird kind of amalgam, because if you look at it, it's like, it's humanoid, it's animalistic, it's like insectoid in a sense.
It crawls
it's like,
on all fours.
it kind of gets all of it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
That's
so
we're scared. We're scared of bugs. We're scared of animals.
Yeah.
Horror movies that use insects either end up being very good or very bad.
Arachnophobia.
Yeah.
Very bad. When I was a kid, it scared the shit out of me.
Yeah,
I was scared of spiders, but
Right.
Watch it now. It's a whole different story.
Well, so that's the funny thing, right? If, like, so just to speak on, like, horror situations in other media or kind of in general, like, so speaking on sci-fi, the Mass Effect trilogy is one of my favorites, right?
Yep.
Mass Effect is so good.
And
Except
Mass
for
Effect
Andromeda.
3 actually made me want a Dead Space style Mass Effect game. Think about the husks. They are both very alien and very humanoid at the same time.
Like, I remember in the first game where they were, like, stabbing
Yes, where the Geth on Eden Prime, that's a very good example. Mass Effect played very well with this because you go up there and the spikes start coming down, and these are people. Yeah. They have, like, robotic parts, and they can electrocute you, and they're fucking full-on zombie running at you. Now, one of my favorite missions in Mass Effect 3 is when you go to the Ardat Yakshi Monastery. You haven't fought a Banshee yet. You don't know what these are. So you go to this monastery, and you just hear these unearthly shrieks as you're going down broken elevator shafts on ladders. And you're using a flashlight in a lot of the early part of this. And the tension there was so good. And it made me want a Dead Space style. Because here's the thing, right? Commander Shepard is a fucking badass. Certified, you have killed a fucking giant spaceship at this point and made it to the center of the galaxy, and you didn't get sucked into a black hole. I wanted a game where you were fucking Joe Blow nobody with a fucking M3 Predator, and that was it. You had no fucking armor, no shields. You could take out husks, maybe cannibals, maybe even a marauder. Brutes and fucking banshees would be tanks and witches from Left 4 Dead. They would fuck you up. And that was a game I wanted so bad.
That would be
just based on that one mission. That was a whole game I theorized.
Dude,
that would be
fantastic.
Well, if you want to buy that idea from us, BioWare.
EA, BioWare, listen, just please don't make it weird and glitchy.
And I'm breathing into the mic. This is scary.
I do want to throw this out there before we kind of move on from this segment. That I do think the interesting concept, kind of talking on like something like arachnophobia, right? You were scared of it when you were a kid, But now you look back on it, it's like, what the fuck is this? Right?
Laughable.
So
Okay. But so we've all played Skyrim, right?
yeah,
Have you ever just gone into a cave, you're sneaking, you don't step on any traps, you don't activate anything.
Stop.
You turn around and there's a fucking giant frostbite spider behind
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Did you ever actually get scared by that?
no, I
every
absolutely
every
guaranteed.
single
time.
Guaranteed. Now,
Or the fucking bears.
now here's the thing about that I've kind of started to realize, right? When you're younger, you understand a whole lot less, right? You comprehend a whole lot less about what's going on around you. You've ran into significantly less spiders than when you're older, right? You've kind of gotten used to the act of spider appears, I kill spider, whatever. So by the time you're older, you give way less of a shit about it. But when you're a kid, no matter how campy and cheesy, that movie wasn't any less cheesy.
Right.
When you were a kid.
It was the same level of cheese.
You perceived it differently, right?
Well, your imagination's different when you're a kid.
Exactly. But here's the thing. I realized horror is kind of about manipulation of perception.
Yes.
More than anything. Because even though you could sit there and say, like, a zombie in real life, if you saw a zombie right now, that'd be pretty fucking freaky,
shit
right?
all of my pants.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. That'd be fucking scary. But here's the thing, even just through the countless zombie medias we've seen, it's no longer really that scary.
Well, I mean, unless it like starts Naruto running at you.
if it did that, I'm
Gen
like,
Z zombies.
Oh, that's what's locked in Area 51 now. They all actually went. There's
Just
this
like all of
Gen
a
Z
sudden,
Gen Zombones.
John Ward.
like you hear shee, shee, and they're all coming over the hill.
But
All Naruto running.
which also kind of plays into the fact of like you were saying earlier, Red King, when you were talking about not showing. Because the minute you show it, right, even when it comes to Alien, right, you know what the alien generally looks like now.
Yes.
So if you've seen it before, there's no other Alien movie after the first Alien that's really going to affect you the same way that the first Alien did.
Aliens does a pretty good job, but that's far more combat horror.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of like, if you look at the kind of genre shift of some of these movies, they've kind of shifted a lot more heavily focused towards action and things like that
Yeah.
than the actual horror aspect of it.
And
Which-
the twisted things that happen.
Yes.
Exactly, because you've now seen it. So you can't really, unless you're trying to scare a whole new generation of people, which why would you make an Alien sequel if you're trying to scare a whole new generation? You're trying to still cash in on the generation that has already seen it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
So
Yeah, but
that
anything after Aliens is.
yeah yeah. So
Prometheus.
we don't talk about.
We're not going to get into the fucking neomorphs over xenomorphs thing.
So that's something I've
the
kind of found
engineers.
interesting is that you have to know to play human psychology before you know how to make something just look kind of creepy. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And I feel like that's why sometimes suspense can be just as horrifying as horror, because suspense has you sitting there like you're sitting back in your chair tensed up because you really don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And it could just be a person at the other end of this fucking corner here, but you just have no idea what's about to happen.
Yeah,
Okay.
your mind runs
So
wild.
that's why Silence of the Lambs is such a good movie.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Boy.
Because that's the thing, right? Hannibal Lecter is a very eloquently spoken human monster.
Oh wait. Are you a fucking eloquently spoken human monster?
Maybe, bruv.
Maybe.
But that's the thing, right? So
That's just a
lot
disarm
of
you.
a lot of stuff is scarier. Yes, I'm the Uncanny Valley. Yes, I'm doing that.
That's my.
I am a Terminator.
Sick, bro.
But here's the thing, right? So going back to what you said about both not showing and even when we're younger, our imaginations are better. The thing is that the world is kind of a shitty place, and as we get older, we realize it more. So it's harder to jolt us out of, all of us know about shit like the fucking genocides in Darfur, Rwanda, just the horrible shit that happened in the Sudan. All this shit you start learning about as you get older.
And it's real.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where I think suspense and movies that play with man is the monster. That's why Frankenstein still resonates as a story, right? Because ultimately, Frankenstein's monster isn't trying to kill anyone. Not from the get-go. It just wants its own life. And Victor Frankenstein is actually the monster in that story.
That's a good point. That's actually a really good point.
But those stories go into man's inhumanity to man.
Oh shit, we've gone full circle.
Yes, we have.
Oh, okay.
And that's where I think suspense horror is better. Monster horror is good in the short term because it's one and done, right? There's not a lot that you can make sequels to. But when you play on human emotion or the suffering that we have seen our species inflict on our species, because here's the thing, right? Humans are really good at killing humans. It's probably the thing we're the best at as a species.
Yeah. You want to talk
And
about
that's
scary?
kind of the ultimate horror, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's
Agreed there.
why Criminal Minds has so many creepy episodes that resonate, like the one dude who's a pig farmer. He feeds his kills to his pigs.
Yeah.
There's the one guy where it's the special needs uncle who was in love with his brother's wife and ends up like acid burning their daughter and like almost raping her.
Yeah.
So horror as a genre is very interesting, but I think it's always best if it stays at the human level.
And the next thing we're going to talk about is we've gone over the genre. We've gone over the movies that kind of hit. And we already talked about how horror has kind of shifted to the faces. So let's talk about the faces. I've got, speaking of faces, I've got Leatherface.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So this one was kind of like, it was a little bit easy. But I think that the Face movies kind of started for me with Texas Chainsaw. And then I kind of, that was when I caught my intro to the Leatherface mythos. And that was where I first got my experience with the faces of horror.
Right.
So Leatherface was, the 70s era, the character era of horror, created by Kim Hinkle and Tom Hooper. Now, the inspiration, because a lot of the Face characters got these inspos from like real world killers. Let's see if I can actually speak in English. I can do it.
We can manage it. We've been doing it.
Real world heroes. My tongue turned to mush in my mouth.
That's actual
body
horror.
horror.
Yeah, body horror right there.
He was inspired by Ed Gein,
Right.
who actually did make masks and tried to fashion a woman's suit out of skin and made furniture, and it was like, real. It's real world.
Furniture out of people.
Yeah, like a lampshade. And,
Art.
Oh,
life.
yeah.
Yep.
So
Imagine you walk into somebody's house. You got
So we did a full circle, and then we tried to bounce away from it, and then we came right back to it. That just fucking people are fucking horrible.
At this point, it's just a bouncy ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just powerballs off the wall.
So the origins of Leatherface kind of change. Obviously, when they first create these villains, they were kind of just more or less one-offs. They caught this massive cult following, and then you have to continue. So you have to make a Texas Chainsaw 2. You have to make a Friday the 13th 2, or
Halloween. Or
yes.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
So they had to they had to revise his backstory, and Leatherface actually got 3 names.
Okay.
So, originally named Bubba Sawyer.
Yep.
So I had watched the 2003.
Well,
remake.
I thought in the original 1970s it was Bubba Slaughter.
That might have been the nickname, but is Bubba Sawyer so his family name is Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
In Texas Chainsaw 3D, because when they started making horror movies in 3D, how fucking terrible! Piranha 3D, and Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Let's just roll on beyond that.
yeah, we don't talk about 3D.
Remember when they put porn stars in horror movies?
I mean, you still do that. Green Inferno.
No, like actual, like
I know.
You Google them and
and
then you have to delete your
Don't
browser
do
history.
Yeah. Do something
So in Texas Chainsaw, we'll talk about 2003, which that was the one that I first watched.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right?
The 2003, the remake of the first.
Yeah.
He is
That's
Thomas.
a problem. We're remaking movies every 30 fucking years.
Thomas Brown Hewitt. And then in Chainsaw 3D, he was Jedediah Sawyer. So Sawyer came back and became. So Sawyer disappeared and then came back into the canon and then became the official canon, where his name, maybe his first name changes, but he is a Sawyer.
So, just quick tangent to this. They're coming out with a Texas Chainsaw Massacre asymmetrical horror game.
Oh.
It's going to be a 3v4. So, there's Bubba and 2 of his family versus 4 survivors.
Oh.
So we're
early next year, because you guys have seen the Killer Clowns from Outer Space ASIM, right?
No. What?
Holy shit.
It's like 4v7.
I won't be playing
3v7.
Yeah, because you're fucking terrified of clowns. Crimson's terrified of clowns. Certain things that are clown related.
So getting wigs.
So and like squeaky noses. And then boxes with people who have shipped themselves to you.
They just
27 people come out of a punch bug, all in clown card and costume.
So the character's origin was kind of in the first movie ambiguous. It really just focused on how fucked up the things he was doing to people was.
Right.
And it kind of, that was one of the villains, the horror movie characters that more or less stayed ambiguous. He started to accumulate these floating points in his character.
Right.
One of the floating points was always like a birth defect or a hereditary illness that causes like face tumors, and he was bullied as a kid.
Deformation, yeah.
Always very fucking strong and a little bit mentally.
Poor Bubba.
So basically, if Lenny from Of Mice and Men didn't have George.
So George saved him in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The biggest way was, anyways.
We'll just pop off that topic.
So the cannibal butcher plotline was a thing in the original. It was, it's just easy. It's like cannibals, always scary. Butchers, always scary.
Oh yeah, there's never a time where you see a guy laughing off a pig leg. Nah, he's normal.
He's fine. To all my local butchers that give me delicious steaks,
yes, we love you.
I don't hate you. I don't think you're fucking creepy. So
Red King doesn't think you're creepy
because I love steak and I know a butcher. I really do. I don't want to fuck that.
Well, most of the time, I mean, most people are fine.
Most of the time.
So one of the plot lines, I wish I had actually written down the movie that it was from, because there's a couple of them. They played that he was a Korean POW.
What?
So he was
John McCained his ass? Well, John McCain
He was-
was Vietnam, but
so he was an American soldier that was captured in Korea and learned cannibalism to survive, and came back, and it was all downhill from there.
that's kind of weird though, because like the whole point of Bubba is that he's kind of
Special.
not all there mentally and is like ridiculously strong.
Yes.
That's why he's like throwing a chainsaw around with one hand.
Yeah.
So in I think he's always been like a country boy and been kind of strong and not too smart.
Right.
But I like the POW idea because it gives real world gravity
It's
to the
interesting,
shit that he does.
but like you said, Ed Gein was kind of the inspiration for the original.
Yes.
And I mean, not to bring up another horrific topic, but like real world human violence is really, really bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Columbine, shit like that. That's
So
Yeah.
in every version of Texas Chainsaw, his whole thing is that he also has his family backing him up.
right.
His family loves, fears, kind of gets in with them.
Right.
You know, just the crazy shit. They're all kind of a little crazy in a way.
Little hills have eyes there.
So
That's not
I've been around. I've been to a couple of places. I've been to a couple of like, you know, you get a little bit more rural and it gets a little bit.
Yo, there's a stretch of road from here to a certain town I'm not gonna name where it's like my car breaks down here. I'm just
But
Yeah, it's either
I'm gonna
it's either you load up and just clip anybody who comes near your fucking shit, or you opt out.
right.
Yeah.
I get it. So a couple of things that I liked about Leatherface. I don't know. It's simple. The motherfucker's big. He's dumb. He's strong. He's got that chainsaw. And I have done as a kid nothing physical work adjacent. So like I'm in my adult years just kind of learning how to use a chainsaw. And like I work construction, but chainsaws don't come up very often.
Right.
And so when I was younger, that was crazy to me.
Right.
And I remember, so the thing that jumped out to me that makes me want to talk about Leatherface is watching the 2003 remake, and there was a scene where he catches, the best I could equate him to was like Freddy from Scooby-Doo, the Freddy of that gang.
Yeah.
And pulling him down into the basement, and he is holding on to like, you know, it's kind of like a root cellar, and he is holding onto the walls, and his fucking fingernails bend off.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
ah!
Yeah.
And then the stoner got his like
Shaggy.
it's the Shaggy. Of
It was
the
a
group.
fucking every.
It was.
It was the fucking Scooby gang.
They
met a real monster.
Leatherface cut his leg off,
Oh yeah.
and then it was fucking crazy to me. He cut his leg off, and then he packed the stub with salt and wrapped it in butcher paper. Oof. And that scene fucked me all the way up.
Oh yeah.
So that's really it. I mean, like, there's a lot of criticism to it, like how the hell you're gonna get your ass beat by somebody who's so big, so dumb, so slow, hide around.
He's only got to catch you once.
Yeah, but I could fuck him up. I wouldn't even need to prepare. I could hear the chainsaw, be like, "That's screwed up."
Okay, what if he just leaves the chainsaw?
No, he could eat my ass, bro. I still.
He can eat.
He's going to.
He's like dumb,
Yeah.
dumb. dumb, big and heavy and stupid, I'd fuck him up in real life. But horror kind of.
Or he punches you in the chest and your heart explodes.
But you would think you got him, and it's just one quick. God, how's he so big and so quick?
Oh, that brother exploded in the air.
All right. So here's the thing. Because I've put a lot of thought into this and kind of like going back into talking about how Eli Roth is kind of a pervert. So perversion in horror movies seems to be a weird thing. It's synonymous, right?
So I think perversion in horror movies, because horror movies are already a kind of a perversion in themselves. Mm-hmm. When you take human sexuality and add it in there, it creates
so much fucking scary.
Yes.
So now let's talk about what I believe was the birth of human sexuality in horror movies, and that is Nightmare on Elm Street, and that is Freddy Krueger.
Interesting.
Because if you think about most of the victims of Freddy Krueger, they're a lot of college age, co-ed, very sexually active people who were caught in very compromising situations. Now this guy's invading their nightmares. There's a sexy girl that he was always trying to get with, and now he's murdering them. And it's like Freddy Krueger, to the point of almost meme status, has been now synonymous with killing college age, very highly sexual people. So I do.
Interesting interpretation.
I kind of believe, and whether I don't have any facts to back this, but I do. I think about kind of the Freddy versus Jason kind of thing. Where not a good movie by any means, but that was my first introduction to these two classic horror icons. Now, if you think about a lot of the times where Freddy was striking as opposed to when Jason was striking, there was a lot of sexually driven scenes in it, right? So it then becomes it becomes a bit weird, right? And then now you see things. You remember that show Scream Queens?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where it's like all these girls are going out there to be the next Scream Queen, and then pretty much being hot was one of the categories.
So yeah, I think that maybe not to play too much on your point, but I got kind of this theory. I've always had this theory, and I work with a fucking kid who's really into horror stuff, and the way he acts almost is completely substantiates the way I think that horror has this element of like jealousy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So like these people who are making these movies, maybe they weren't super popular in school.
Maybe.
And maybe they weren't catching, or they weren't pulling, like, they weren't really pulling anybody.
They weren't pulling 8s.
Yeah.
They might have gotten a 5.
They might have gotten a hand.
Well, that's a 5.
Ooh!
Nice. Okay. So,
Bravo.
So maybe, you kill them, all these fucking really, like, the dudes are always studs.
Yeah.
Girls are always hot.
Yeah.
They're always going at it. And, like,
Yeah.
So, I totally get that. Like,
and I do believe that that's a strong component to the point where you can look at pretty much any, especially the lower levels of horror. I will say it gets better the more well-known the directors and actors and this, that, and the other thing are. But the lower levels of horror, I realize, almost always have a weirdly sexual aspect to it.
Right.
yeah.
Well,
There was that one where it was essentially like a STD. I can't remember the name of it.
I know exactly.
don't forget teeth.
Yeah. And like, right? And
I think might actually be on Netflix.
I watch it on Netflix.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of, when I look at an iconic characters such as, my character of choice, Freddy Krueger, I think that not only was it like iconic in like maybe stylization, maybe way of dress, maybe way of killing, but also kind of like paving the way for this weird, like, I'm gonna say, living through in a way your horror character invention.
Right.
Living out your jealousies, living out all of this weird subversion of comfort and all that type of stuff. I believe that Freddy Krueger would probably be, the iconic role behind making that a standard in horror.
That's kind of interesting to interpret Freddy that way, though, because so when I was reading about George A. Romero, one of his big things is like it's about the themes of his zombie movies overall is about the poor just trying to find somewhere where they're not just scraping by.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big theme of his movies. It's like they just have to know how much power they actually wield. But not who I'm picking. I'm picking Ghostface from Scream.
What? Ooh, okay.
Okay, wild. Okay.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Serial killers play on our most individualistic fears. Because statistics ultimately mean nothing. You can see the ridiculous numbers of kills in X amount of events. But ultimately, statistics mean nothing to the individual.
Right.
Scream goes for that much more personal, visceral level, because it's just a dude in a mask with a knife. That's it. He's in a fucking bathrobe, in a shitty mask, with a knife. And he's outthinking you. He's stalking you. These are all very real-world possibilities.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
So Ghostface, I would argue, is one of the creepiest. Not every Scream movie is good, but that first one.
Yeah, and as a character, I feel like that kind of embodies like the perfect element of horror.
Because literally his mask is someone screaming.
Okay.
And so no one else, like, as far as horror,
really good. That's really good.
Yeah, they all go for the omnipotence. So like, Freddy Krueger's in your dreams. Leatherface is like exponentially fucking stronger than you.
Yep.
Jason Voorhees is like undead and
deal with the devil depending on what version you're dealing with.
Or like remember Jason X?
Yeah.
We don't talk about Jason X.
Even Michael Myers in the Halloween series is kind of deal with the devil.
Yeah.
Even though that's very similar to Ghostface, there's still some supernatural element to it.
He was stiff as fuck. Ghostface was booking it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like
that's the thing, right? Imagine if they remade Scream and you just hear "she" and he's just Naruto running at you.
Yo,
that's just full tilt sprinting at you.
Like no holding back, because by that point
by the time you see him, you try to run. That motherfucker's on you.
But no, I do agree, because if you do because from time to time I'll go down this weird rabbit hole on YouTube of like watching like these scary like found footage type things, right? Of people.
Dude, those can be really good.
Really though, and some of these is person security camera, and there's just a figure just standing there.
Yo, you're really gonna like the Mandela catalog.
I'm very interested, because here's the thing: there is something, right? Even if you know I'm pretty capable, I could probably fuck this guy up. The fact that this dude don't give a shit, he's just standing there.
There is something to be said.
Here's another one for you, right? Have you ever just been like by yourself in your house and you just see a shadow move out of the corner of your eye?
I'm out. I don't care.
I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna take a walk.
Dude,
If I get mugged, it's less scary.
Right. I'm gonna turn every light.
Run your pockets. And be like, hey, company.
So think about what Ghostface wears. He's wearing a black robe, right? With the white mask. So if you just see that out of the corner of your eye, you might not even pay any attention to it. Oh, that's just a fucking trick of the light.
Yep, you might try to minimalize it. You might try to
rationalize it.
And then all of a sudden,
knife.
Yeah, this oogie boogie ass motherfucker
Right.
just stabs you.
But that's actually why I picked Ghostface.
Yeah, I gotta say, yeah, no, bringing horror back down to the human level, kind of.
Stop doing
Yeah, but
impressively effective. I will
Oh
say.
yeah, it works.
I would say my favorite is probably still the H.R. Geiger, H.P. Lovecraft style, just because I enjoy cosmic level stuff. But
it's like way over your head. Like it's
Yes.
outside. It's outside of not just your planet. You're not in the vacuum of space. You're like in.
so the
fucking
whole
different
thing like
multiverse
behind
bullshit.
that is like non-Euclidean geometry, right? It's outside the human comprehension of the universe.
Yeah, no, I as soon as I start dealing with that level of shit, I'm just like, I'm clocking out.
Yep.
Like, I'm gonna go to sleep. Whatever you do to me is
Blow my fucking brains out.
Stab a couple hundred times.
And with that, it is last call. Thanks for having a few with us. This is Critical Hit. We've been drinking Country Pumpkin, subverting my ideas in pumpkin beer probably forever.
Just like your horror expectations.
Exactly, subverting horror expectations and beer taste. Critical Hit, man. We're making waves.
Till next time. Till next time. Drink hard, play responsibly, and yeah, we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.